Thank you for staying with us, everyone. A fresh constitutional controversy is unfolding in Rivers State as 26 members of the State House of Assembly have leveled allegations of gross misconduct against Governor Fubara and his deputy. The lawmakers claim the governor and deputy lack the capacity to perform their constitutional duties, raising serious legal and political questions about governance, the due process, and the limits of legislative power. The Rivers State House of Assembly has also rejected plans for Governor Fubara to present the 2026 budget until allegations of gross misconduct against him are concluded. Let's hear directly from the Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly.
The process of impeachment is on as we speak. Having received the notice, my job is to forward it, and it's important that we allow this process go through. What this motion is saying is, in the event that the governor tries, as he has always tried to do, to be smart by half, to now say he wants to bring the appropriation bill or to present the medium-term expenditure framework, the movers of this motion are saying, let him hold on now. Let the process for the investigation of the allegations brought against him and the deputy governor be concluded. In any case, the governor does not even want to present any budget, because if he wanted to, he would have brought it all this while. Similarly, Fubara is a mistake. He is a mistake. Rivers State has never had it this bad. In the entire Nigeria, similarly, Fubara and Professor Ngozi Odu, these are the only two people in the office at the sub-national level that are yet to present 2026 appropriation bill. The entire country. He has been boasting, he has been saying it to his followers, that this assembly were nothing but toothless bulldog. That this 10th Rivers House Assembly, we cannot do anything, we cannot enforce the constitution. This is a sad commentary for our democracy. Sir Simla Fubara and Professor Odu, they are nothing but a threat to our nascent democracy. If they are allowed to remain in office, I don't know what will become of our democracy.
Right, so it was important to hear directly from Right Honorable Martin Amabule, and according to him, Rivers State has never had it this bad. Governor Fubara is a mistake. So tonight we examine what the law says, the implications of these allegations, and what this developing situation could mean for the stability of governance in Rivers State. Tonight we also seek some neutral and legal perspectives to this ongoing political dispute in Rivers State. Constitutional lawyer Ugwummadu is my guest tonight. Mr. Ugwummadu is also a political affairs analyst. It's a new year, Mr. Ugwummadu. Good evening to you. Thank you for joining me on Politics Tonight. Good to have you.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year
it's
to you.
It's my pleasure to be here
Right.
this evening.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. So sadly, this is a conversation that started barely 6 months into Governor Fubara assuming office. There was this initial fallout in October 2023 through the 2024 legal battles to, last year's state of emergency, and finally today's fresh impeachment notice. Well, the more it seems peace has returned to the states, it is then a renewed political battle among interest groups crop up. But going by the words of the speaker, Rivers State has never had it this bad. Governor Fubara is a mistake. If they're allowed to remain in office, I don't know what would happen to our democracy. But if the president had intervened twice and this hostility continues, what do you make of it?
Well, thank you again for having me. I must tell you that this is one of the most complex issues I've been invited to discuss on national television. Not because it is completely out of the radar in terms of political evolution in our country, but essentially because it has become completely convoluted in so many respects and on so many fronts. Now, the piece you talk about was a mere piece of poverty, stability of starvation, one that didn't quite, in short, the dust in the belfry never quite settled. Now, here is what I mean. What we have at the moment, in my view, is a clash, a context between constitutionalism and raw power game within the same political entity called River State. And to make it worse is that it is now, unlike what it was when the whole trajectory started about a year ago, when it intensified about a year ago. It has now become a more complex situation because all of them, the political gladiators, the actors, are now in the same political party, APC. I'm speaking about members of the State House of Assembly and even the governor who has just recently defected, to tell you that the absence of party politics, in the true sense of it, has also hit its own challenge in the democratization exercise that we're experiencing in Nigeria. So when you ask me, I will tell you that the end is not very much at sight. I'm talking about the peace that is desired in River State. It's not very much at sight because each stage, at each curve, at each turn, solutions and ideas that are proposed as solutions have defied every effort. Now, you can imagine a situation in which Mr. President had intervened not once, not twice. In fact, in the last 30 minutes, we have had to hear further revelations of extraordinary efforts made by not just the president, but the leader of the same political party in which this whole crisis is brewing. So what are the issues? I have identified it as a clash in the sense that never in the history of this country have we seen such a situation in which a member of a different political party would move into yet another party, not by reason of membership, but by reason of appointment, and extend the chaos that he is capable of deploying in his own political party, and simultaneously make every desperate effort to be in charge of the party that he doesn't belong to in the state where he comes from. I mean, we have to do a proper study on this to understand how exactly it worked out. And as all can see, is it really working out well? Can a country such as ours, no less the state of Rivers, afford this kind of commotion? Well, in my view, it is the people of Rivers State who are the victims. In what way? If you hear, and I'm not verifying what members of the State House of Assembly are saying, but if you hear that in all the states of the Federation, it is only Rivers State, according to members of the State House of Assembly, particularly Jack, who is the leader of the House, that has not presented the 2020s. In fact, they say that he has not presented that of 2024, that of 2025, and that of 2026 appropriation bill. Why was he not able to present those bills, respective bills? The history is known, the facts are clear for every person, and the commotion that has become Rivers State is not abating.
All right.
Secondly,
perhaps I should. All right.
We hear, if you don't mind, I'd just like to land by saying, I leave other points, to say that, look, the biggest problem for which I said this is a clash of constitutional and political contestation is that even the constitution that they are relying on has left very nebulous, very much hanging in the air, the issue of what constitutes gross misconduct. So if
I was
people
going
can
to go
sit
there,
around,
Mr. Ugwummadu.
members of the State House of Assembly, and agree that, yes, and agree that anything is a gross misconduct once it is within their own subjective interpretation. So let me allow you to answer your question.
I mean, so that would be my next question, because I mean, ordinarily many Nigerians who do not have the background, who are not legal luminaries, will be asking, what constitutes gross misconduct? Because I haven't heard from the House. The House is leveraging on demolition of the Assembly complex, extra budgetary spending, fund withholding, and defiance of Supreme Court ruling. Would you say these are not tenable situations?
So I would rather put it this way. First is that I need to enter a caveat. And that caveat is to say that, look, I am a student of history and has very intense interest in political developments in our country. And for that reason, I do sincerely believe that a State House of Assembly, like the National Assembly at the national level, should be a check, a constructive, objective check against, or rather on, the executive arm of government at those different tiers of government. I do sincerely believe. In fact, where nothing is happening in terms of consistent, regular concurrence, I suspect that all is not well there. So when there are hits around the interplay of forces between the arms of government, provided, of course, that it is targeted at the delivery of the dividends of democracy, I'm in support of it. However, where you now have as a tool, as a sword, any and every opportunity to attack the executive arm of government, that becomes a worry. But if you ask me, the points they have raised cannot be swept under the carpet. Now, are these, for instance, they talked about the demolition of the State House of Assembly. Now, this is what has happened, in my estimation, for almost 2 years, at least more than a year and a half. Could that still be the reason why this is happening, considering all the waters that are spat under the bridge and all the efforts that are made to ensure that the state moves forward? If you ask me, I will say no. But does that still constitute a legitimate and valid ground for any State House of Assembly that would at any time, depending on their subjective disposition, can that still constitute a basis for them to raise a notice of impeachment? Yes, and that is what we see. What is the second point? Appropriations are going on without appropriation bill and appropriation law. Very sound point. So now you now have lined up these issues, included them in the very beautiful legalese to meet the benchmark and the threshold for the activation of Section 188, and then move in a manner that clearly, in my view, now, if they have stopped there, I will be happy. I will say, yes, that is it. The way you now see the speaker almost prejudicially drawing the conclusion before, look, the impeachment procedure under Section 188 of the Constitution is like an investigation process leading to a punitive action. So where the head of the legislature, which in fact is the accuser, begins to draw conclusions in the way and manner that I heard Speaker Mawule speak this night, that gives me concern. That he is not just a mistake. Similar, Fubara is a threat to democracy, and that they will do everything within their powers to ensure that that mistake is not made again. And you will hear those, I mean, he's going to be passionate about this. But it's also very important to understand that it must be done with a very measured language, such that doesn't, jeopardize the objective test of the process you are pretending.
All right then. Mr. Ugwummadu, with you, ordinarily I should dwell on the legal implications of this crisis, but I intentionally want us to touch on the political angle to this conversation. In what ways would you say Governor Fubara may have contributed to this crisis? And I want to take you back to the Supreme Court final verdict on the legality of the 2024 budget presentation, which you had spoken about earlier. The Supreme Court expressed strong disapproval of the River State's government's decision to proceed with an appropriation bill that did not originate from a fully constituted House of Assembly. And one of the biggest questions I've heard this evening is Governor Fubara really politically naive to the extent of also disregarding the rule of law?
My sister, you couldn't have put it any better. Quite frankly, in short, and that is from the standpoint of decided judicial authorities, which in our parlance has become a case law. So it is settled that where you inadvertently or by reason of indiscretion proceed to present the appropriation bill of a state to a poorly constituted or wrongly constituted state House of Assembly, you do that not just at your own risk, but and it will become of no moment. That is settled. And the Supreme Court came with very hard words to deal with that situation. But they have moved on. They have moved on. And it was on the basis of that the State House of Assembly were now insisting that that bill should be represented to the properly constituted State of Assembly. Now, there is no straight road to all of these things. Never mind that, already I recall that at that time, you had these political actors entrenched in different political parties. The question is, are they still in different political parties such that they cannot find a common ground at a meeting point to be able to resolve these issues first politically before it becomes a contentious legal issue? But that is as far as the law and the case was concerned. If you ask me, Fubara, with profound respect, could not have been such a personality by his mere and natural disposition to what looks like peace. Cannot be the person to engage Governor Wike and his disciples in Rivers State or 4 states. On so many occasions and at very serious moments before this time, Governor Fubara had dampened the spirit of the masses of Rivers State. In short, he literally let them down, not just by dropping the balls, but was unable to sagaciously take advantage of the grassroots people's mass support that he had.
Kindly let me put you on hold. We must take a break now. But there's an update. Rivers APC has rejected moves by the State House of Assembly to impeach Governor Fubara. Many Nigerians are wondering what happens next. But that will be our conversation when we return from this break. Please stay with us, everyone. This is Politics Tonight, everyone. Thank you very much for staying with us. Alleged gross misconduct. 26 lawmakers allege Rivers Governor Deputy lack capacity to perform constitutional duties. And I've been speaking with constitutional lawyer, political affairs analyst. Thank you very much for staying with us, Mr. Ugwummadu. Now, the Rivers State chapter of the APC has rejected moves by the Rivers State House of Assembly to impeach the governor and his deputy. These members are warning that such action could destabilize the state. Is this politics at its peak? First, you consider the fact that the speaker and 16 others have defected to the APC in December. And also 3 days ago, a picture emerged showing Minister Wike in a meeting with Rivers State APC Chairman Tony Okocha and Rivers State PDP State Honorable Chukwuemeka Aaron. What exactly do you think is happening?
So you could see and perhaps agree with me now that this is not entirely a constitutional matter as it is meant to, to be believed, as it's pushed to be believed. If it were, you wouldn't see such pushback from within the same political party now, where all the members of the State House of Assembly and the governor all belong to. So the question would be, why would the leadership of the political party be rejecting what its members in the State House of Assembly, because that's what it is now, from Amewule to all of them, are now in APC. So you could see that there is much more to this crisis, and it has developed other layers of complexity in the process, where it is now becoming very, very difficult to untie and have these matters with clarity from any angle that you look at it. So when the State House of Assembly members begin to accuse Fubara, for instance, that you didn't even present the 2025 appropriation bill, you will therefore ask, wait a minute, are these the same people who were on suspension on account of the declaration of the state of emergency pursuant to Section 305 of the Constitution? That budget was assented to by the president as proposed by the National Assembly, who now took over and superintended the activities of the State House of Assembly as allowed under the Constitution. So are you therefore challenging that which has happened in the circumstances that it happened, where your own state budget became appropriated and approved and consented to at the National Assembly? That is the price you pay when you don't know the limit of hot air, when you don't understand the parameters of engagement. So now it is becoming very clear to me that the people of Rivers State need at this point to find their voice and define the limit of the commotion that they have suffered in the last few years, and be able to retrieve their state back to themselves. And what I mean by that is that it is going to be very, very unsettling and indeed unpredictable to allow the political gladiators and actors to continue in the manner and at the pace that they are going at the moment. I don't see an end to it. In fact, I had written an article when this whole matter started, when I predicted that ex-governor Minister Wike has become the best template for Fubara to engage.
Wow.
But the man has shown not to have much spine, and he's been pushed around as though he has become not just inconsequential in the political calculation of Rivers State. He is almost sent to the political purgatory, so to speak.
All right, Mr. Ugwummadu, because there is a lacuna in that part of the Constitution, which does not clearly state what constitutes gross misconduct, I'm forced to take you up on that part of the Constitution that says the holder of an office whose conduct is being investigated under this section shall have the right to defend himself in person or be represented before the panel by a legal practitioner of his own choice. This section says gross misconduct means a grave violation or breach of the violations of this Constitution or a misconduct of such nature as amounts in the opinion in the House of Assembly to gross misconduct. Now, going by past experiences, how does a governor in this kind of situation save his head?
Well, every situation plays itself out fully too, based on the merits of that situation, based on the prevailing circumstances, and based on the variables that are within the control of the actors. You could initiate the process, activate the action, but you might not be able to control the end. I say this because, as it were, first and foremost, you have seen from the section of the Constitution that you read that what constitutes gross misconduct, on the basis of which a state House of Assembly can activate the impeachment process, is largely a subjective provision that gives members of the State House of Assembly very wide latitude to determine, in their own opinion, what constitutes gross misconduct. So, like I have said, you can't be raising the point about the 2025 budget when indeed you ought to know that that was completely left the powers of the state, and it did happen and got consummated outside the sub-region of River State. Having said that, you could see, in my view, that Governor Fubara has boxed himself into a very terrible shape. In fact, I didn't know those who have advised him to move on to APC. But
I think that's a bad choice, but that's a bad decision.
I would say entirely it's a bad decision.
Okay.
But what I'm not able to affirm to you, even if I'm not conceding that or that it is a good decision, is having moved, what strategies and what strategic steps has he taken, did he take, and is he willing to take to balance the power game in River State? I don't see any. On the contrary, he loses ground every moment, at every turn, at every curve, such that he's unwittingly empowering his opponents in a way that they are riding a rough shot on him at the moment.
All right then, constitutional lawyer Ugwummadu, thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. This is an ongoing development, and our job here is to continue to monitor these developments and bring Nigerians the top of all of the situations. Thank you so much for your time. Please have a great evening.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a short break now, and when we return, we begin our second conversation of the day. Please stay with us.